This is Straight Talk with Atlanta native Greg Penn, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shannon Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fan, the Preacher Man.
Preacher Man and Shannon E. Jones, Ron Allen, and Miss C. Listen, don't you go nowhere. We got a hot topic tonight. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. Epstein is going to be one of the things we're talking about, but we're talking about a whole lot of other stuff and what's going on that they're trying to hide from us by doing a whole lot of other things to get our mind and our eyes off of what the real deal is. So don't you go nowhere. We'll see you on the other side after Miss C with nothing but straight talk. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comments, and share on our YouTube channel.
Hi, Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast, or more or less. Hey, Bishop Greg. Hey, Pastor Shannon. Hope you all are doing well. Good to see you. Listen, I've got some news I want to share with you, okay? You're invited to an event entitled One Night at 580 The Temple with guest speaker Dr. Anton C. Elwood of St. Philip AME Church. One Night at 580 The Temple will be held at Flipper Temple AME Church, 580 Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard in Atlanta. Reverend Elijah Shafar is the lead pastor. You can get more information by calling the church office at 404-522-5020. The 7th Annual Holy Convocation of the Assembly of Churches of Faith International will be held September 23rd through the 26th, 2025, with guest speakers respectively, including Apostle Curtis Longino, Apostle Paul Warner, and Apostle Aaron B. Lackey. The official night will be September 26, 7 p.m., with guest speaker Apostle Corey D. Johnson, Sr. This Holy Convocation will be held at the headquarters at Hands of Faith Deliverance Center, 4068 Boulder Crest Way in Conley, Georgia. Now listen, that's all the news I have for you right now, but I do want to share something with you and just ask you if you could be a little kinder this week, okay? Let's all try to find someone that we can help or maybe assist. You know, we could, if you just look around, I'm sure you could see somebody that could use your help. And if not, then maybe you want to volunteer. Or maybe you could call up somebody you know that's been sick, or maybe a widow like myself, and just find out if there's anything you can do. Maybe do some household chores or some household repairs, or go to the grocery store, or you know what, just sit with the person. I found that just sitting sometimes with somebody is more helpful than medicine. You know, and sometimes people are really lonely. They may not say anything, but they be lonely and would love to have someone to come over and have conversation with them. Okay? Anyway, listen, I'd like for you to do 4 things before we leave. I'd like for you to, what's the first thing? Like us. And then secondly, I'd like for you to subscribe. And then thirdly, I'd like for you to leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing. And number 4 is to share Straight Talk News. Don't keep it to yourself. Let everybody know what you know, okay? And if you'd like for us to announce your event, you can email it to me at straighttalknews1362@gmail.com. That's straighttalknews1362@gmail.com. And we'll be happy to let everybody know about your event. And listen, in the meantime and in between time, may the Lord God bless you real good. Okay? Bye now.
Thank you, Miss C, for your church news and information and all the stuff that you shared with us in terms of telling us to be kind to somebody this week. Make sure that you're kind to someone this week. Somebody need an encouraging word to be lifted up from all the things that's going on in the world today. Somebody, just give somebody kind. Don't talk ugly to people. Say something kind to people. Everybody going through something. You don't know what people are going through, and with all the things that's happening today. between the young and the middle age and the old. The Gen Z, the what they call them, the millennials. And I don't know what Shannon, you and Ron, I don't know what y'all like. And the baby boomers.
We X,
then the X's.
Yeah, we Gen X. Yeah.
Gen X's. The only thing I'm going to say to y'all is, welcome. I'm glad y'all here tonight. but listen, thank you, Miss C. Miss C always has something nice to say. But listen, tonight, we want to continue to talk about this Epstein thing and what's going on. Really, I mean, John Bolton, they locked the man up. They're going after everybody who is not going to go along with what Donald Trump is trying to do, doing the cover up of the Epstein file. I was in Savannah this week. And just looking at the news down there and what they're saying and stuff, and people are not naive or fooled about all of this stuff that Donald Trump doing, having all of his DOJ department and having his FBI agency and all this stuff, and the National Guard doing all the things that they're doing. People are not fooled that this, and I think you said this is an imperialistic government, Shannon, you said earlier about it, Donald Trump. But the reality of it is people are not fooled by all of this, Ron, you and Don. They don't run you and Shannon. They're not fooled by all of this. It's just not enough talk coming out about it. Even to your point, Ron, as we were talking before we came on, about even the preachers, they're not talking about it. I mean, when you're talking about pedophile, you're talking about a pedophile, a man who was a part of an organized group that was preying on young women and taking their virginity away from them. And I mean, and we sit back and we know we're supposed to be a moral society, but we sit back and we call ourselves, I don't call myself a Christian, gentlemen, I don't, Shannon, I call myself a believer, because Christians, they do every and anything in the name of Jesus Christ. I mean, so I just think the one is that we're staying on it, but I want to hear from you guys tonight, really, as we dig deep. And Ron, I want you to kind of talk about some of the stuff you did with the kids today in terms of teaching civics and those kind of things, and what the kids are learning and understanding. Shannon, I'm gonna start with you tonight. I start with you tonight since you coming in from the weather report or golfing or something. I don't know where you been coming in late. Always coming in late. Where you coming in at this time? Watching a 2-year-old?
Good thing I don't tell you my business. We'll tell everybody. This morning, excuse me, allergies acting up. This morning, we awakened to a story about the former National Security Advisor, John Bolton's home being raided by the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI director, in true G-man style, said nobody is above the law. I want him to remember that he said that. He said no one is above the law. And so in 2020, a book was written by the former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, to President Trump. And he was also was in the national security for President George W. Bush for the 8 years of the George W. Bush administration. But he wrote a book called The Room Where It Happened. And there were several disclosures in that book that pointed to the Trump administration and the dealings and how kind of the sausage was being made on foreign policy with the Trump administration, and it was jarring. And the Trump administration, or the Trump team at that point, because they were not in office, attempted to have to do an injunction on the book, so the book did not come out. Of course, Bolton said in several press interviews that if Trump would be reelected, and then once he was reelected, he said this would be a retribution 4 years of total retribution, and that's what it was. So we awakened to that story, and then the Justice Department put out some, what I would call, dangled some pieces of the Epstein file, and including the new interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, the post-conviction interview of Ghislaine Maxwell, of which in that interview she spoke very kindly of the president. Of course, if you were doing 25 years and you've sized the president up, obviously to say some kind things about him, and to kind of paint a picture as though he was not as intricate to the Epstein world as he was, would be a way to certainly get her commuted out of there. So they released that interview tonight, and it's just more of the same. It's first of all, in the interview, she stated that she did not believe that her former boyfriend and business associate committed suicide. She said that basically that, you know, for $25, someone on the inside could kill you for $25 worth of commissary. So she certainly alluded to the fact that he didn't take his own life, but that perhaps someone on the inside did. I would imagine that Jeffrey Epstein would have been a high-level protectee in the prison, given all of the connections and whatnot. So I don't think that it was on the inside. What was interesting is that Todd Blanche did not ask who would have wanted to kill him for $25 commissary. But the bottom line is that we're talking about that tonight, and we're not talking about the truth about the files. Release the files. If Trump is not in the files, or if he's not prominent in the files, if he didn't do anything wrong, I don't have to listen to a convicted child international sex trafficker who's trying to have her sentence commuted and hopefully to receive a pardon. I don't have to listen to her because she's over the barrel. I can read it for myself. You and us, America, we can read it for ourselves. It was very interesting to know what was in the basket that she was carrying when she left the meeting with Todd Blanche. That would be very interesting. That'd be something that I'd like to know. They didn't release that information, so it's clear. But all of this, and I'm gonna hold it here. All of this is trying to make us really there, and we know that something.
Well, it look like it held for you. Yeah, look like this. It held for you, Shannon. I don't know. I don't know if they heard what you said and they just went on and said, call him and get him off. Get him off. Get him off. He's saying too much. You're muted yourself. You're muted yourself. Muted because your audio is on my end. You're muted. Yeah, you're still muted. Won't you go back out and then come back in, and I'll go to Ron and maybe, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and then we'll be able to, we could hear you. But we're going to end with you right there. So now we're going to, no. Say what? Did you say something? No, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. All right, Ron, he unpacked a lot there, Ron. What is your take on some of the stuff that Shannon shared?
It was, he really, again, set the table to really talk about the duplicities of what governments are doing. Bishop, I'm thankful that you brought up my class. For those who, know, and those who don't know, I'm in 8th grade. So I was teaching, we're opening the year talking about civics and government. And one of the interesting things about the surveys of governments right now, looking worldwide, is that governments are performing the very actions that go against the very concept of why they were created. It's so difficult to look at the world's condition right now and fail to assess the great instability against man's ability to provide for our communities by looking beyond the actions of governments. The government of Russia right now is continuing to orchestrate a 4-year invasion of their neighboring Ukraine. We have the government of Israel continuing a complete extermination policy against the Palestinians. The government of the United States either tacitly supporting or overtly supporting, as we have done with Israel since their creation in 1948, that everything that Israel has done has come under the sanction and blessing of U.S. foreign policy, that we have an ironclad relationship with the country of Israel and have always provided the weaponry, the training, and the resources for them to exterminate, execute apartheid. And now the UN this very day declared Palestinian land is in a completely man-made famine crisis, in which over 300 Palestinians have starved to death as a means to execute an occupation policy and a wartime endeavor by the government of Israel. So governments are actively providing the instability, the political instability that makes it difficult for families to provide for themselves, to make it difficult for us to live in safety. And as it relates specifically to the Epstein case and its connection to Donald Trump and other high-profile individuals, not only within the American political system, but the European political system, the Asian political system, we fail to see governments do their primary job and role, which is to protect the lives and the integrity of the innocent. That is difficult to traffic the children around the world the way Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did, and provide children, young girls, to satisfy the lust, the power, the esteem of heads of state, of billionaire captains of industry, without governments knowing that these children are being abducted, without governments knowing that there are sophisticated engines operating within the domains of these countries and nations that continue to facilitate the drug trade, that continue to facilitate child trafficking, that continue to facilitate the illicit sale of goods, both legal and illegal. That if we want to continue to be obtuse and ignore that with the surveillance capabilities of what we have in our own possession with phones, drones, and other things, if you think this level of sophistication that governments like the United States government, like the Russian government, the Chinese government, the North Korean government, the South African government, if you think the tools that these governments have at their disposal hasn't already fleshed out the people who are running these multinational crime rings, we are being blithely ignorant to basic realities that are controlling the underbelly of our society to keep a myth of normalcy. I understand we want to go to work every day. I understand we want to take our vacations. I get it. And we have every right to do those things. But at the point of us doing those things come at the expense of multitudes, generationally, of young people being held against their will, being shipped all over this globe, losing contact with their families, their communities, their identities, to be sold at auction or at random in the possession of somebody you don't know who they are. Like, it's so difficult for us to consciously state how commonplace we know that pedophilia is in this country. That systems like enslavement have made pedophilia so commonplace. And the systems that we have endured in the West and in the industrialized world have exposed us as average citizens to so much trauma that we have been desensitized to the human condition. And it's so difficult to move us into action because we do face so much political and economic pressure to pay our mortgages, to pay our rent, to be prepared for retirement, to provide a decent lifestyle for our young people so that they not only receive a quality education, but have the opportunity to explore the world on their own terms. And so to open the year this year, my students, we've investigated the governments of Georgia and the United States, comparing the Georgia Constitution to the United States Constitution. And our students had the opportunity to create their own governments as an expression of what their understanding is between the relationship of the powerful, the people we've contracted together to give our protections of freedoms to, and how we are supposed to fulfill the roles and responsibilities as citizens. I mean, when you see governments like the United States so lackadaisical and absent-minded about what it means to protect our rights, no wonder citizens don't want to be on juries. No wonder we don't want to pay our taxes, because we understand we're getting a bum deal for what we're giving to this society. Families have given their lives in the wars America wants to wage against these countries, in Vietnam, in other places we've invaded, Panama, other places we've gone on. It is the blood of average Americans that moves this machine of death and greed and drudgery and shame, and continues to facilitate a racial hierarchy in this country where different ethnic groups continue to pit themselves against each other for a greater slice of the economic pie that the 1% just dangles in front of us while they count their billions and flout their lifestyles in our faces. And then we vainly attempt to make ourselves look like that. And it continues. So trying to get our young people to understand that we do have to draw a line in the sand at some point, and demand better from our elected officials. That finally, I got to give some credit to a Democrat by the name of Gavin Newsom in California, who has had the courage and personality to go against Donald Trump, to mock Trump's meandering social media style, for Gavin Newsom to be releasing images of himself being blessed by the late Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock and Tucker Carlson, that we finally see a Democrat who got enough gumption to say that there is some authority behind the liberal position. There's authority behind feeding children. There's moral authority behind feeding seniors and housing the homeless and bringing families back together and educating our young people. Instead of us always putting value on running immigrants into detention centers that fail to have proper waste facilities, that got people sleeping on cots, refusing to have proper ventilation. Why is that always so okay? So, Bishop, when we talk about how we can wrap our minds around systemic injustice, when the injustice is bred within the execution of the system itself, we have to apply Occam's razor, that the simplest explanation tends to be the correct one. And we have got to trim the fat off these conversations and stop giving the powerful who are guilty every excuse before we get to the fact that they are manipulating both ends of the system and pitting everyone in the middle against each other to justify their own greed, their own malfeasance. It is up to us to hold them accountable. And so how we do that, I'm open to hearing that.
No, I think the one is that you and Shannon both have unpacked a lot, you Generation Xers. I think that what you've said is basically what is the root of the problem? We are being pitted against each other by race, by classism. You know, that's how we're being pitted. You know, I mean, if you think about us as a people, you know, I'm a baby boomer. You wouldn't hear those kinds of things that's happening now in our community in terms of pedophilia. There may be some older men who were trying to date young girls and all that kind of stuff, but you know that was they knew it, and people would stop that. Parents would ask who your people is, who your dad is, who your mom is, where they work. I mean, so you wouldn't have a whole lot of things. We don't question things anymore. We just go along to get along. We just go along. Parents are not parenting anymore. They're just going along to get along. I told Shannon this earlier when we were talking. I said, and while we were there in Savannah, my wife and I, we were walking, and so we heard this kid said, "I'm in trouble. Help me, help me, help me." So, you know, quite naturally, my ears stood up, right? My ears stood up, and I told my wife, we walked around the corner, and there was a little baby in a carriage, right? A little baby in a carriage, right? This little baby in the carriage was hollering, "I need help. Help me, help me, help me. I'm in trouble." This kid couldn't have been no more than 1 year old, maybe going on 2, saying that. I said, now, this kid he's heard that from somebody else to be saying that. "I'm in trouble. Help me, help me, help me." You know, we think about all those kids that were abducted years ago, those cases where they were abducted. A young lady was abducted by a pedophile, by pedophiles. I can't remember the guy's name, but you know the story. And they imprisoned these kids in the basement of his house, and then they had babies by these young ladies and stuff. Young ladies' mind messed up today behind it. You got to raise a child of a person that molested you, that kidnapped you, that as a kid, right? We know the story of the guy who killed these 2 little girls on the train track. I mean, it's ongoing. But I think that you hit on something. Really, it is the classism system that we've been caught up in. It's like, well, it ain't in my house. It ain't going on in my house. It ain't going on in my neighborhood. It ain't going on in my church. It's over there with them. And it's not us. You know, as a labor leader, I used to tell people this all the time. When and we done heard this saying before, they said, "Well, they ain't bothering me, so I don't need to be in the union." Well, time they bothering them, they ain't bothering me. When they come after you, then the first thing you want to do is, can the union help me? Can the union help me? But when it was about somebody else, you didn't see anything wrong with that. You didn't see anything wrong with that. So I think the thing that we're forgetting is that there's no difference than you and me and them. It's us. It's us. It's got to be about us. And we as pastors and we as ministers, we need to stand up and speak out and call out these things that we see, because we see it, but we ain't saying, we're not trying to be grandiose. I want to be the biggest pastor. I want to have the biggest church. I want to have the most. But what are you doing with them? You know what I mean? What are you doing with them? You got a church full of people, but what are you doing with them? I mean, how are you helping them? Well, we got a feed program. We feed them every Wednesday. Okay, Jose Williams said, you teach a man how to fish, he can eat for the rest of his life. You give him a fish, you only eat one day. What are you teaching them to bring them out of the condition that they're in? How do we do that? What do? We got to be open in our conversation. We have to be really committed to doing it and doing what the Bible says in Matthew 25, looking out for the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. That's what we're supposed to do. He said that if you preaching about heaven, going to heaven, but you ain't looking out for nobody. You want to go to heaven, but he said if you don't look out for the least, the less, the lost, and left out, you're going to hell. You know, I mean, that's just real. So we don't get happy because you're in your little world now. Now you're losing, Shannon. Now you're losing your pension money. Oh man, because of tariffs, your pension money. Now you're talking about what's happening with your situation now. But now you in the soup with everybody else. But before they weren't messing with you, you were good with them messing with me. You were good with them messing with sending old people back to wherever country they send. Till somebody said, "Oh, we ain't got nobody to pick our crop." Now you're saying, "Oh, they're messing with me," and you don't even hear our cry about that from the farmers who losing money. Are they really losing money? All they're going to do is bail out for the farmers like they've done before. Oh, we're going to bail out the farmers. We'll bail them out, but we'll send y'all away, but we'll take taxpayers' dollars and we'll bail them out. But we got people who are laying on the street that don't have food to eat and all those things. We're going to take their food stamps away from them, take your Social Security away from you, take your Medicaid away from you. We're going to do all of that. But now we're going to bail the farmers out. But you're going to be all right. But then the other people are going to be suffering. So if we're not together in it, then there's going to be a division. To the point that you say, people who call themselves so-called Christians. I said so-called Christians. People who are believers, who believe in the word of God, should be standing up and they should be raising hell about what's going on because they see what's going on, they know what's going on, and they need to be raising saying about it. I mean, people say, well, we can wait till the time to vote. We'll wait till the time to vote. We'll vote us a new president. We'll vote us a new congressperson. We'll vote. That's in every 4 years we tell them we're going to vote. But what happened in the meantime? What happened in the meantime? Just like you say, you know what they do? You know it, and Shannon know it too, and people listen to it. They'll put money in your campaign. They'll put money in this campaign because why? They know they got the control. Either way it go, they going to have the voice that they need, whether it's this person that's a Democrat or that person that's a Republican. We got who we need to give us what we want. But what about the people? What about us? What about us, Ron? What about us, Shannon? Who's going to stand up for us? Who's going to stand up? Is the preachers going to start standing up for us? Or are we the only one? I know there are others, though. I ain't going to be like Elijah said, we the only one. But I know there are others. But their voice is not coming loud and clear. We need to have more of a clarion voice in terms of what's going on and standing up and fighting for what we believe and know that Christ would want us to do. All right. Shannon, you've been chomping at the bits and your mic is just going off and I don't know why your mic going off. You had high volume on your mic and you ain't said a word.
Well, I don't know. I'm enjoying this prophetic conversation this morning as, you know, all this news was unfolding. I had to go to my library and pull out Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr.'s The Imperial Presidency, which was written in 1973 in the throes of the throes of the Nixon administration and Watergate. And as I was reading it, I was struck by the fact that the Confederation Congress in 1787, September 17, 1787, had wanted to have a presidency that was a strong president, but the presidency itself was weak in the sense that there was enough weakness there to balance it with the co-equal branches of government, the courts and the Congress. And in this book, Schlesinger, who was an advisor to Kennedy, a Harvard professor, and then finished his career from 66 to 1994 at CUNY, City University of New York. In the book, he talks about this gradual moving or this gradual empowering of the executive, and how the executive would usually co-opt or grab more power around wars and issues of crisis, and that as more crises would America would be confronted with more crises, the executive would move into more secrecy, and in that secrecy take more power. But I'm struck by something that I just want to read this for our readers tonight. The Constitution also brought Congress into the treaty-making process, withholding from the president the exclusive authority enjoyed by European monarchs to make treaties. Where the British king, for example, could conclude treaties on his own, the American president was required to win the consent of 2/3 of the United States Senate. The one who, quote, the one can do alone, said Hamilton, unquote, quote, what the other can do only with the concurrence of a branch of the legislature, unquote. And Congress received other weighty powers related to the conduct of foreign affairs, the power to make appropriations, to raise and maintain the armed forces, to make rules for their government and regulation, to control naturalization and immigration, to impose tariffs, to define and punish offenses against law of nations, and above all, to declare war, to grant letters of marque and reprisal, and to make rules concerning captures on land and water. And as I read that, I could already see how the Trump administration is going to make the Nixon administration look like kindergarten, look like romper room when it's all said and done, because all of those powers that were invested in the United States Congress have now been usurped. Capturing Greenland. I'm going to take Greenland. I'm going to take the canal. I'm going to rename the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. I am alone today. He said that he said as the executive, he said he's the top cop of the country today, that he is the chief law enforcer, was his quote today, of the United States of America. So when we look at this, we see an imperial presidency moving. And this president enjoys this because he's not an intellectual, but what he is I believe, a severe narcissist, perhaps a sociopath, and a spoiled brat, in the sense that he is used to getting what he wants at any cost. And that's a part of a narcissist in crisis, is that at any cost, they will go ham to control the narrative, and to bring everyone in control under whatever it is that they're trying to do, whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. Everyone has to bow down. So Kash Patel saying today that no one is above the law, and then the Attorney General stating today that they have to do what they need to do to safeguard the United States regarding Bolton. It's going to be quite interesting, because both of these agencies, or this department and the agency under it, in other words, the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is a part of the Department of Justice, have all been weaponized to bring about the Trump administration, to bring about the imperial presidency. And so I pulled out another document today, and this is the Constitution of the United States of America. And Ron, this is something you should encourage your students to have, but this is something that all of us need to not have on the shelf, but I got a thin enough copy that I can keep on my person, in my car, and with me at all times, because in the invocation of this, or the evocation of this imperial mindset, this imperial presidency, everything justice, everything law has been thrown out of the window. We are now watching the erosion of a system of laws, a government of laws, moving into this polarized political world that is no longer based on constitutional rights or wrongs or norms, but it's based on the machinations of leaders that are willing to go ham in order to gain more power, and chief among them is this Trump administration. And that's why we have to stay on the Epstein case. And that's why they're doing all of the stuff that they're doing. Trump is not doing this in order to prove that, I'm a busy president, I'm trying to make things happen. No, he's doing this to keep us off the trail of what's in those files. Kash Patel knows what's in those files. Dan Bongino knows what's in those files. Pamela Bondi knows what's in those files. And Donald John Trump knows what's in those files. And Melania Trump knows what's in those files. And Ghislaine Maxwell knows what's in those files. Regardless of what she said today, she's trying to go free. And they're trying to pivot on her testimony today to say that there's not, that the there that is there, that what Pamela Bondi told the president was in, that his name was in the documents, that his name was in the files. They tried to use her words today, twist it to say that whatever it was it was very minor, and that she knew of him of doing no wrong or doing anything at all. But this is the same woman that said she did no wrong, that she didn't know what was going on. So, we just have to continue to stay on this case, have our Constitution, and watch or combat. And I'm going to say this last thing, and I agree with Ron. Very happy to see the governor of California. I hope that this really grows into this, not the sizzle but the steak, that we get down to the brass tacks of it, and that it's not political showmanship, because it's extremely important to continue to push against this. If the Democrats don't do it, the fourth estate, and by that I would mean, maybe the liberal or the more progressive fourth estate has to combat what this president is trying to do, because they are eroding the constitutional norms of this country, which is the foundation. They're changing the fabric and turning America into something that the framers of the Constitution never wanted it to be, even with this living document called the Constitution that's continuing to move. It's moving in an area that it was not supposed to be.
Let me just say this, Shannon, and then Ron, you can jump in just briefly. I want to say this. The Oversight Committee has asked and subpoenaed the Justice Department for the file, unredacted.
That's right.
It was supposed to have been given to them a couple of days ago. They still haven't gotten the file. All of this ain't nothing but a smoke stream over and over and over again to keep from releasing the file. No one is saying anything about the victims. I mean, they're not saying anything about the victims who went through this, and nobody's talking to those victims who could have been in the room with whomever. I ain't going to just say Donald Trump, whomever, because it may be some other folk. But the reality of it is that we want to know who's in the file. We want to know who's in the file. That's all we're asking for. Just show us the file. You said, Donald Trump, that when you got there, you were gonna show us the file. You gonna expose everything. You say you're the top law enforcement officer, so you had the power to tell Pam Bundy to release the file, unredacted. You're holding it up. You holding it up because it's something in there you don't want the American people to know. I mean, that's just real talk. That's real talk. Go on, Ron. I'm gonna lose you.
Yeah. Set me loose, Bishop. Set me loose. Look, let's understand right now. For the person who's trying to hide their dirt, we need to already know that dirt has occurred. We need to be acting as a society. I still know legality and our judicial protocols do require for us to gather the evidence and have the evidence. Without a doubt, we do need to get those administrative and official protocols covered to be able to get this man convicted. But a part of getting this man convicted is to have and I'm talking about Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, 45 and 47. So ain't nobody having any ambiguity. We need to be acted on the certainty that we know this man is a pedophile. He's already been convicted for overinflating his property values. I'm glad that the courts upheld that Trump and his son still cannot do business in the state of New York for how they have, even though they overturned the $500 million judgment against him, at least these crooks and criminals cannot openly do business still in the state of New York. And Letitia James is 100% correct for validating the fact that yet another court in this country has found the business practices of our president to be criminal, to be negligent, and to be suspect. So let us move past the point of inquiry as the general public and speak with certainty that this man is a predator. This man is a criminal. This man will use whatever office he has at his disposal, whether his office is as a real estate mogul in the state of New York, whether his office is being a popular culture figure, cameos in movies, cameos on shows, whatever he is. And now as a political agent, this man is furthering and will continue to further his criminal enterprise through the auspices of whatever office he holds. That needs to be a certainty. Moving on to a point that Shannon brought up. Your great analysis of checks and balances and understanding which powers were designated to the Congress in terms of establishing treaties, also the declaration of war, and which policy powers were given to the executive, the president. That is a great setup for us to understand that we need to stop acting like Trump's overgrab and Trump's overreach is something novel to the U.S. political system. George Bush, when he was in office and we invaded Iraq after 9/11, Congress did not declare war in that situation. In fact, the last time the U.S. Congress has declared a open war was the first Gulf strike, I believe, in 92. So in all military operations that we've been living under post 92 has been coming from the expanded powers of the executive, as opposed to our Congress giving the official declaration of war. So we have been living under a sequential and step-by-step expansion of the executive. Trump has taken that mantle and ran with it the furthest, but let's stop acting like this is something new. We experienced this with Bush. In fact, there was talks of impeaching Bush the same way Trump was impeached, because Bush was openly expanding the powers of the executive in unprecedented ways, and it had us on edge as the general society. In fact, Barack Obama rolled that anxiety from the Republicans, from what Bush was doing, into the presidency. But again, we see that the Democrats failed to push the agenda of liberalism, of multiculturalism when they are in office. And speaking of what the government is doing and how the government is continuing to facilitate this type of political instability, we have to bring up the Supreme Court and Chief Justice John Roberts, who in 2019 closed the court, the Supreme Court. He closed the court from any further cases dealing with gerrymandering. So when we have the Texas Republicans running around now, they're going to be creating new congressional maps almost every year now, almost, to make sure that their side has a political majority in Washington. And we understand California and New York may be doing that on the Democratic side. But when you look at how many Republican governors and how many Republican states are controlling state governments, the Republicans have a much more and wider base in which they can redistrict states throughout this nation, that once the Democrats move past California and New York in terms of redistricting, what is another state that they could execute that to give themselves more seats? The Republicans can go to Alabama, South Carolina, Louisiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, and redistrict all these states. And the Supreme Court now is officially closed to hearing any additional gerrymandering cases as a result to what Chief John Roberts ruled in 2019. And when we talk about the Democrats' inability to further their agenda, it is the Obama administration in 2016 when they failed to get Merrick Garland the entire full year of Obama's presidency, and you are unable to get that Supreme Court justice confirmed. That set up the context for John Roberts to have the majority to cut off gerrymandering cases in 2019. We have to understand that Democrats have got to take advantage of being in office and push the agenda of workers' rights, of civil rights, of children's rights beyond reproach, because the Republicans have successfully organized at the local level, the state level, and the national level to get a repeal of Roe versus Wade, to get the destruction of the Voters' Rights Act. They're now gerrymandering at will. They have 2/3 of the Supreme Court. I guarantee that before the Republicans, and I'm going to end on this point, I guarantee before the Republicans are done, they are going to try to extend Trump's term. They brought that up his first term of trying to find a way to give him additional years. And they're going to try to do it again. So we see Republicans being active in furthering their agenda, and Democrats taking the victory lap that as long as they hold office, at least that's not the Republicans being able to run wild. That is an unsatisfactory way to hold power in this country. Just to say we kept our opponents from doing what they can do for a measly 4 years. And then these Republicans come back in power and start running wild
again. Listen, we got to wrap it up, but I tell you the truth, this is a fired up, and it's all real. And I hope people that are listening, I know we're going on a little longer than we normally do, but this is needed and called for, really, because if we don't stand up, and I'm making an appeal to the clergy, if we don't stand up as clergy, and if we don't stand up and start teaching civics in our churches, and I'm just saying here that if we're not speaking up, we're the prophets. We're the prophets. Watchmen, what of the night? Paul revealed what the British is coming. I mean, they have came, but what are we going to do? And Ron, you made a great analysis when you said that we fought back that they couldn't do it. But fighting back and not moving forward is no good. That we just standing still. We playing defense when they playing offense and defense. Offense and defense. So listen, brothers and sisters, this ain't been never straight talk, but Ron and Shannon and myself, listen, if you're mad as hell, you ought to do something. That's what I want to say. If you're mad as hell and you're tired of talking about it, you ought to be about it. All right? So share this with somebody else, this straight talk. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to make contact, comments. Don't forget to share as we go around the world with news and information with George to the great fan of preacher man, Shannon E. Jones, Miss C, and Ron Allen. Until next week, this ain't been nothing but what? Straight talk.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Craig Fan at FANN922@Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shannon Jones and Greg Penn, the Preacher Man.